Welcome back to the Progressive Patriots. Hope you had a pleasant Christmas or Hanukkah, Kwanzaa, whatever you like to celebrate. Festivus for the rest of us. That was my deal. All right. So I took a little break for Christmas, like no shit. But there's a lot of stuff to catch up on. So I'm not sure. I was planning to do this as just like a single roundup for both international and domestic, but that we'll see how that goes just because there's so much. So let's get started with a little butting of heads between the Philippines and China. Spokesman for the Philippines says that China is violating international law by violating Filipino maritime borders, which has been the case for fucking ages here. The foreign minister from China claims like that the Philippines is only acting because the U.S. supports and encourages these types of things, and that the Philippines should return to a bilateral negotiation table or to find some sort of resolution for common interests. But one of the problems, I know that we mentioned it a while ago, is there's this old ship. I actually read a little bit about the history of this ship. It was a destroyer in World War II for the U.S., and it was gifted to the Vietnamese for a period, and after that, it was passed on to the Filipinos, to the Philippine Navy. So this particular ship, known as the BRP Sierra Madre, whatever, they ran it aground on the Second Thomas Shoal, which we've discussed before, and they continue to reinforce it because, like, this is our space, fuckers. So if you want it, they have a contingency of Filipino Marines on the ship, so that's who they're constantly supplying with this. There has been like water cannons and that type of thing. But this is I don't know, this feels like deja vu here. It's the same shit that's been happening for months, at least since I've been watching it. This has come up multiple times. So I know that we'll have a little bit on the South China Sea as it pertains to not just Philippines but also Vietnam, but we'll have that in a little bit. So moving along to Taiwan, the current vice president, Lai Ching-te, of the DPP, that's like the more popular party, the Democratic Progressive Party. They refer to the KMT, Kuomintang. That is the historical group that was run out of mainland China to Taiwan when they lost the civil war against the Communist Party. But so the DPP vice president referred to the KMT as being pro-communism. Now, the Chinese Communist Party refers to Vice President Lai as a dangerous separatist. That's what they call him. And they refer to the upcoming presidential election, which is in January on the 13th, as it's like how do they say it? It was that the Taiwanese people are deciding between war and peace. So the KMT candidate is Hu Yu-e. Trying my best here. Let's see. Said, we don't need to have an election by fabricating slander and painting us red. And we don't need manipulation by ideology. So for that to be an adage there, like a common phrase, like to paint something red, I don't know. I've always heard paint the town red, which means to just like go fuck around and, have a wild time doing whatever. But to paint something red in Taiwan is to label it pro-communist party. So I saw conflicting reports on this. The mainland China typically ramps up military maneuvers, war games, that type of thing, leading to the elections, but so far have not. The Xi Jinping, president of mainland China, his words after like this little spat between the two candidates, he vowed, that was the word that he used, to prevent anyone splitting away from China in any way. The motherland must be reunified, and inevitably will be reunified. Now, from what I understand of this little situation, is that the majority of people in Taiwan want to just kind of continue being Taiwanese. It's how they like identify themselves. And they don't call themselves they don't seem to refer to themselves as Chinese in the sense of Republic of China, or Chinese in the, I don't know, in the sense of the ethnonym or demonym. Lai Ching-te, the front runner for the DPP, he has already stated that Taiwan is already a sovereign nation, and that if you don't believe me, we're called the Republic of China. That not his exact words, but you know what I mean. So President Xi vowing to reunify China, and for Vice President Lai to already be saying this isn't a question of our sovereignty. We are already sovereign, and that's that. Yeah. So the KMT typically tries to be more, I don't know if appease is the right word, but they do try to keep more friendly, cordial type relations with Beijing to try to avoid anything, which is something else that the KMT candidate who said that was exactly that, is just because we're trying to avoid war does not mean that we're pro-China or pro-communist China. I don't know, man. The history of appeasement is not a good one. But, I mean, this is, for reasons that are, I think, pretty fucking obvious, we will be backing Taiwan in its endeavors to remain independent. But, yeah, we'll see. We'll see how far we're going to go to commit to that. All right, so the following three are Asian news from Asia, in the sense that the countries are in Asia, but this also straddles the line with the Ukraine-Russia war. So these three nations have expanded their sanctions against Russia. Taiwan, their sanctions were mostly on high-tech stuff, which is one of their primary exports. They also included Belarus in their sanctions, and these are in keeping with Korea and Japan, the other two, as well as the European Union, in the UK, everyone else. So Korea, they expanded it to 600 more goods, products that can be converted for military use. So you have to get a special exemption from the Korean government export that type of stuff to Russia. Russia, naturally, is not happy about this. They're calling it like essentially a proxy move by us. Like they're only doing this because we told them to. Gonna have to stop you right there, madam. She was like a spokesperson for the foreign ministry. That both Korea and the Japanese Self-Defense Force had to scramble. They had to scramble jets because Russian and Chinese bombers were flying in formation with each other through and near Korean and Japanese territory. So that's that is I'm not I don't think this is just a move because the US said so. You and your fucking homeboys are really pushing the line here. You're towing the line in the most egregious way possible. Right. So, but moving up to the Japanese portion of this, they actually sent, in addition to sanctions, they also sent Patriot missile defense systems to the U.S. Now, how is this something that's going to piss off Russia? How does that how does that, what's the problem here? And it's just that once they've been shipped to the U.S., Japan cannot guarantee that stock won't be sent to Ukraine. You know what I mean? But at the same time, Japan sends us their Patriot missiles, and then we send our Patriot missiles. You see the problem? You see the conundrum there? This is one of the first in almost a decade of Japanese arms exports, because their laws, being very pacifist, don't allow shipping any deadly weaponry of any kind to any country that is actively involved in a war. The foreign ministry spokeslady, I didn't jot down her name because I really don't care, warns Japan, they warned Korea, similar shit, like grave consequences, unambiguously hostile action. Japan and Russia still have... this was actually a weird bit. I thought it was pretty intense. I didn't know this. That there is no formal treaty between Japan and Russia, or like its predecessor, Soviet Union. There's territories that Japan claims, they call them the Northern Territories. The Russians refer to them as the Southern I think it's Kurils. It's just like an island chain, right? And the Soviet Union annexed it after Japan surrendered in World War II. Yeah, so they've been butting heads over that, just the same way everyone's butting heads with China over the South China Sea. But I don't know. I think I might have to amend my previous statement that this is a little different. This isn't just sanctions. This is actively sending arms to a country while they are not directly involved, is directly supplying one of the countries involved. So it is a little bit of a different beast there, but still say fuck them. And there you go. Right. So just because the shit is not in your face front page news anymore doesn't mean that the shit has ended. The weather right now in Ukraine is pretty horrible, as you can imagine. A lot of you East Coast people probably know better than I. But so if you could help lvx.at/Ukraine. That is an NGO, not partisan in any way. It's just helping people who are caught in the middle with warm clothes, fucking warm bed, warm food, the shit that we all take for granted, right? So there you go. That is all I got. So just on the Ukraine-Russia part, the U.S. Congress is still deliberating a bunch of bullshit, but we'll get to that in a little bit. Or later, whenever. I don't know. We'll get to it, though. Okay. We're moving to Africa here. The junta in Niger is preparing to hold elections. The junta, I believe, if I recall correctly, they took over. They ousted the government in July. It was June or July, and they're preparing for elections, democratic elections with independent third-party oversight. So, fingers crossed here. The foreign minister from Togo, Robert Ducey, he went to Niger as an emissary on behalf of ECOWAS, the Economic Community of West African States. So that is I think that's the higher regional body that Niger is sort of they adhere to it. They follow that organization's sort of guidelines on stuff. But not just Togo, but Sierra Leone and Benin also going to be working with the Niger junta, on a short transition roadmap. No date exactly for when the elections will be, but I will keep you posted as that shit develops. Fingers crossed, man. There's already enough horrible shit going on there. Oh, right. Speaking of elections, in the Democratic Republic of the Congo, this Moise Katumbi, among others, but he's the leading opposition candidate. He called the recent elections in December 20th that they were a massive fraud. So there were 5 other candidates. Katumbi is not among them, but 5 other leading opponents are going to be having... Oh, shit. The demonstrations happened today. So I have not heard how those went. I'm hopeful they went okay, safely, peacefully, all that stuff. The results of the election, we shouldn't be expecting to see them until about the turn of the new year. There is a joint statement released by 13 embassies in the DR Congo. As the vote counting continues, we urge all stakeholders, especially political actors, candidates, and their supporters, to exercise restraint, allow the process to unfold, and raise their concerns peacefully. Pretty standard shit. The president, his name is Felix Tshisekedi. It's Tshisekedi. I'm going with that. That's what we got. He's the one looking for a second. This would be his second term. The Congolese Election Commission, it's called CENI. It's something, I think, French. But the chair of that organization, his name is Denis Kadima. He acknowledged on election day and throughout that there were issues. Some of the problems with the election were such that some polling stations did not open on time, delays varying, and other places not opening at all. That's it's questionable. So I didn't know this, but the Catholic Church apparently has a very strong foothold in the DR Congo. They have an oversight group, like a political oversight group, that goes by Senco, CENCO. The Secretary General of Senco, Donatien Nshole, said that the election should have finished on the 20th, on the one day, to avoid any possibilities of fraud. I think that the voting was open up through today, and I expect by now is closed and counting is taking place. But all of the opposition candidates have been calling this major fraud. Very strong language, and it's I don't know, it's concerning. I obviously have to, put my hat on the same statement from all the embassies that are in the country, like hold it together, man. Like, well, we can get through this. So to put some more context onto this situation, like with the problem with some of the polling places not opening, running out of ballots, other things like that, is that the weather is pretty harsh in Congo right now, and a lot of places that were previously only accessible by foot or road or through the air, they can't get through it on the ground anymore because there's a pretty severe flooding that's making a lot of these places inaccessible to anything but helicopter. And the Seni president, Kadima, did try to order more helicopters to get to these polling places, but they weren't able to do it in a timely fashion. Does that mean fraud? I don't know. I can't really say. I don't have an in-depth knowledge of the situation here. I've only started I only started paying attention kind of recently to DR Congo specifically. It's a pretty new one for me to keep an eye on, but so I'm going to keep watching this because we're going to have to see if this is fraud or not. We'll see what President Felix is thinking. I expect it's going to be like some kind of fucking miracle, right? That he wins and says, "Oh yeah, we don't need to do that again." Well, wow, don't we? But right, the flooding in Congo has been getting pretty bad, and a lot of people are dying. Not good. More on that in a second. In Sudan, I described the horrific violence that was happening over there. And recently, today it was not supposed to be, but the head honcho, the General Dagalo of he heads up the RSF, the Rapid Support Forces, that oppose the acting president / chief of the armies, the military. They were supposed to travel to... Now, I'll get to that in a second. But General Dagalo did travel to Uganda to meet the president there, Yoweri Museveni. It's his first international travel since the civil war in Sudan started in April. And it's also one of the first times he's been seen publicly since the civil war started in April. So the Ugandan president brought him in to talk about the increasingly dire situation in Sudan, as well as what General Dagalo's plans for peace negotiations are. And yeah, there you go. So recently, the RSF, they're kind of branching out of the... I believe they've been in the capital city for the most part, but they're branching out to a nearby place. It's called Wad Madani. That was about a month ago. And they've been... I already described the horrible shit that they've been doing. Naturally, the RSF, Dagalo, they deny this. The Dagalo was supposed to take a trip to Djibouti to meet with General Abdel Fattah al-Burhan. He's the acting president, and if you recall, I mentioned that one of Dagalo's conditions for meeting to negotiate is that al-Burhan cannot come in as a head of state. So they were supposed to meet with the Intergovernmental Authority on Development, IGAD, that's in Djibouti, or it's headquartered in Djibouti for the current, I don't know, iteration. But some disagreements in principle between the two of them got the trip canned. I'm guessing that among them is the not meeting as a head of state, which I'm not entirely certain what other capacity he's supposed to go as. But what are you going to do, right? So, like I said, the situation in Sudan is horrendous. I really would rather not describe it again. Imagine a horror movie, imagine a war movie, combine the two. There you go. The situation in Congo, the weather conditions aren't getting any better. So between these two, if these are again non-government organizations, non-partisan, the links for these lvx.at is /Sudan and /Congo. Pretty fucking easy. Interesting news from Argentina. The new president, Javier Milei, the words were issues decree, whatever, calling for a very accelerated schedule for getting reforms passed through Congress. One of which was reinstating taxes on salaries, which I'm not okay. Not saying that they shouldn't be there. It's more of like why would you have taken those away? But there are over 300 measures that Milei wants Congress to discuss until the end of January. And the Congress was not scheduled to meet again until March. Put these fucking politicians to work and do your goddamn jobs. So, I may not necessarily agree with Milei on what he's trying to accomplish, but yeah, put these motherfuckers to work. So this one coming out of Cuba. The Cuban government quietly sort of snuck in their legalization of euthanasia. They are, I think, the second Latin American country to do this, the first being Colombia. So there was a nurse, an oncology nurse, who also had, I think, a pretty aggressive form of colon cancer, I think it was. Something to do with the butt. I'm sorry, miss. But she was she was a nurse for cancer patients, and then she has cancer herself, and it's like things are starting to look pretty grim. She said, quote, "Families want to keep loved ones alive until the very, very last moment, but one has to think of those suffering. If only we could have a dignified death at a certain moment when nothing can be done anymore. Let me die peacefully, in peace and harmony." Her name is Suaima Lopez. I do not disagree with that woman at all, if that's what you want to do. So in the bill or whatever, the law that was passed, that the verbiage was, "The right of people to a dignified death is recognized in end-of-life decisions, which may include the limitation of therapeutic effort, continuous or palliative care, and valid procedures that end life." All right, so there you go. It seems that euthanasia is not as common as you'd expect. It is allowed in the Netherlands, Luxembourg, Australia, Spain, New Zealand, and some states in the US. Man, it's... yeah. Somebody wants to pass on their own terms. Like, fucking more power to you, man. I would at 100% prefer to pick my own time than it is to, like, sit in my own waste, fucking wasting away. All decrepit and fucking pathetic. Absolutely not. No thank you. I do not want that at all. Oh, there's my buddy.
Gato.
Right. So that's the bit from Cuba on euthanasia. It's interesting to me that that's one of their outcomes with a nationalized healthcare service. They're not profit driven. You know what I mean? So the only concern that they have is the best outcome for the patient. They don't have any other concern because things are already being paid for. So I don't understand why this is such a fucking problem. But like I said, I would 100 times out of 100, I do not want to be left on a ventilator hoping that for everyone to sit there fucking hoping that I'm going to wake up one day. And all of the shit that goes into rehabilitation to get to living a normal-ish life again. No thank you. I just don't want that. Miss Lopez, like, fucking one fist in the air for you. I'm rooting for you, homegirl. Right. One bit from Mexico. A delegation from the U.S., Secretary of State Tony Blinken, Homeland Security Secretary Alejandro Mayorkas, and an advisor, one of his advisors, Elizabeth Sherwood Randall, will be going to meet President AMLO in Mexico. So, recently, last week, President Biden and AMLO agreed in principle on the need to start for stronger enforcement of the U.S.-Mexico border, which includes migrants passing through Mexico to get to the U.S., not just Mexican people trying to cross over. So those talks should have taken place today, I believe. There's an activist named Luis Garcia Villagran. He referred to the meeting as the Americans having more concern for domestic election issues, and they want to make the migrants bargaining chips. I don't think there's an element of truth to that. There's no fucking denying it. I don't think they're being treated as bargaining chips. Like, this needs to be processed in a humane and expeditious fashion, but also safely for all parties involved. Like, I don't want migrants to be getting caught in like human trafficking, like sex slave trafficking, because the process is too fucking slow and they had to put their trust in some piece of shit that took advantage of them. Absolutely not. And at the same time, like that, and also the shit that Texas is doing is fucking insane. It's completely fucking insane. I like these aren't. They're still people. These are still human beings. These are still human beings. That matters more than anything. Is their right to life, their dignity as human beings, is more important than I think anything else. I think that can be achieved with a secure border. You can do that. There's just a lot of changes to fucking policy that need to happen. But I'll get to that on the getting sidetracked. I always get sidetracked. One last thing out of Mexico. I thought this was pretty cool. It's a bit more of like a color piece. There's a group called Sisters of the Valley who are trying to change the attitude in Mexico at large about cannabis use and cannabis culture. So Sisters of the Valley, they don themselves in they dress up as Catholic nuns in they're called habits, I think. Mexico's predominantly Catholic, so there you go. And their goal is to try to not just to educate, but destigmatize. And one of the women named she goes by Bernadette. They all use nicknames because we want to take the plant back from the narcos. So naturally, they don't give their personal information out, lest they and their families be targeted for retaliation. So I think that's great. You fucking ladies get after it. It was wild. Like they compared the numbers between the two, where I think legal cannabis revenue between I'd have to check again, but it's between their group and the U.S. market. I don't know if it was isolated to one state or not, but it was 50 times higher in the U.S. than it is for them. That's pretty nuts. They got a steep hill to climb here. So, best of luck to you. All right, let me fucking hate myself for a little bit. Let's talk about Israel and their very terrible, terrible things that they're doing to the Palestinian people. Horrible. So, as of today, it's December 27th. I didn't fucking say that up top. I'm sorry. We're 40 minutes into this whole fucking thing. And so it's I started just after 2200. Because it was 40 minutes ago. It's now 22:42. So there you go. As of today, the death toll broke 21,000 people killed. It's like times 3 wounded. Unreal. The IDF is going to start bombing places on the Lebanese side of the border with Lebanon. Specifically the spots where Hezbollah has been firing rockets at Israeli buildings or whatever. If the world and the Lebanese government don't act in order to prevent the firing on Israeli northern residents and to distance Hezbollah from the border, the IDF will do it. That's from Minister Benjamin Gantz. he is. This is a fucking weird thing. He was actually a member of the opposition party, but the October 7th attacks necessitated a need for like a quick establishment of a cabinet for under Netanyahu. So he is a minister without a ministry, if that makes sense. So I don't know. He has the title. It's just he doesn't run anything in particular. Let's see. If the world and the Lebanese government don't act. Yeah. I mean, this is like, I can't disagree. You want to stop your boys over there, or are you gonna make me do it? Because if I have to do it, you're not gonna like it. Which we know that they're gonna be extremely heavy-handed in retaliating against this. There is another one. The defense minister, Yoav Gallant, he implied that there have been retaliatory incursions in Iraq, Iran, and Yemen. So he said in the statement, we are in a multi-front war and are coming under attack from 7 theaters: Gaza, Lebanon, Syria, Judea, and Samaria, which that's the West Bank, Iraq, Yemen, and Iran. We have already responded and taken action in 6 of these theaters. So the IDF, in some form or fashion, has claimed responsibility for actions in the West Bank, Lebanon, and Syria, but not the others. So that's pretty wild to be admitting that. Oh shit. I sincerely doubt that they're gonna like that. There's a little bit on Iraq and I'll tell you in a moment, but it's kind of similar to this. It's like the other guy said, Gantz. If you guys aren't going to do if you're not going to stop it, then we will. I can't disagree. It's difficult to disagree with that. There's only so many times you can ask before it's time to start taking action. So, doesn't change what's happening in Gaza. It doesn't, and that's very just beyond horrendous what's happening to those poor people. I don't know. I think it's just going to be a matter of who breaks first, and given who is supporting Israel, I really doubt it's going to be them. Speaking of who is supporting Israel, President Erdogan of Turkey likened Bibi Netanyahu to Hitler and Israel to the Nazi regime. I say this all the time, and I'm going to say it again. I fucking hate when people try to draw parallels to World War II. It is so fucking played out. Completely fucking played out. Change the fucking record here. You're doing it so much that it loses its efficacy. The more that you throw out, oh, so-and-so's like Hitler, such and such are the Nazis. Like, you keep doing that. If everyone's a Nazi, then nobody's a fucking Nazi. Right. So, Erdogan, you're a fucking idiot. So he claimed that, he labeled Israel a terror state, referencing the airstrikes and the ground raids and strikes from ships in the sea. And he called for international tribunals to try the Israeli government. Here's his exact words. I'm quoting Erdogan here. So, quote, "They used to speak ill of Hitler. What difference do you have from Hitler? They are going to make us miss Hitler. Is what this Netanyahu is doing any less than what Hitler did? It is not. He is richer than Hitler. He gets support from the West. All sorts of support comes from the U.S. And what did they do with all the support? They killed more than 20,000 Gazans. End quote. That's Erdogan's words. And here is President Netanyahu's response. Erdogan, who commits genocide against the Kurds, who holds a world record for imprisoning journalists who oppose his rule, is the last person who can preach morality to us. I thought this was like a fun fact, was that Turkey and Israel were pretty strong trading partners up until the October 7th attacks. And Turkey also does not consider Hamas a terrorist organization. It's gonna be a bad move from you there, pal. Yeah, like glass houses, like don't. Come on, man. Like you're a piece of garbage. Like why are you gonna be pointing out other people that are in the dump with you and act like you're better? And even if you're not trying to act like better, you better be your hands better be clean before you start pointing fingers. Let's see. Oh, right. So the IDF incursions, the implied incursions into Iraq, Iran, and Yemen. Speaking of incursions into Iraq here, the U.S., there was an airstrike in there. For some reason, my notes on this didn't save, but I kind of remember them. There was one U.S. service member that was critically wounded, critical condition. 2 that were like badly wounded. They didn't really give a measurement, but because it was done, the act that hurt them was a drone attack by this. What's her name? It's like Kataib Hezbollah. It's another Hezbollah faction that operates in Iraq instead. I believe it's Kataib. And so the U.S. Struck back. They killed 1, and I saw conflicting reports, 16 and 18 injured. And the Iraq government referred to this as like a violation of their sovereignty. So I expect that they're going to say the same thing if the shit from Israel's confirmed. Like, of course you don't want to just you can't just let foreign governments roll into your territories and do whatever the fuck they want without you at least knowing about it. Like, that's definitely not cool. I'm curious if Iraq even has enough strength to do anything about it. If they would do anything about it. Just the U.S. advisory, the U.S.-led coalition is something like 5,000 troops that are there for the purposes of preventing another rise of ISIS, the Islamic State in Iraq. So there's that. Here's the last thing. This one I just wanted to point out because you'll see in a second why. The Prime Minister of Spain, Pedro Sanchez, refuses to... He kind of axed the idea of the European Union anti-piracy force being used in the Red Sea, but was open to other options. He said that Operation Atalanta, which that's their anti-piracy thing, was made for piracy in the Indian Ocean, where circumstances are very different. Okay, fair enough. So this is what caught me. Like, I brought this up fucking last time. Operation Prosperity Guardian. Spain is already a fucking member of that task force. What the fuck are you even talking about? I don't know. It's a weird thing to have to say. Like, oh, we don't need that. We already have this. Why don't you just say that, you fucking idiot? But speaking of the Prosperity Guardian, Denmark Danish shipping company Maersk, they are going to resume routes through the Red Sea with the Prosperity Guardian Task Force in playing defense for them. Their ship is the Maersk. They announced on the 24th that it would be going through the Suez Canal to the Red Sea, through the Red Sea. It's going from Tangiers to Singapore. Yeah, well, I haven't seen if they've encountered any troubles, but it's supposed to be making good time, usual times, rather. And there's a German company that was also named that patently refused to go through Suez, and they're going to be going around Africa again. They're going to continue going around Africa until further notice. Maersk did slap on some fees for shipping with them because of the dangers and stuff. So, fucking hazard pay for the sailors on those ships is, I'm not going to say no to that. You are already in Prosperity Guardian. Like, what the fuck? What are you even talking about? All right. That is not all. I'm going to have Tasha give us a little bit on the Vietnam situation that we talked about before. But let me recap some of those. How can I help? How can you help? If you can afford to, lvx.at/Ukraine, lvx.at/Sudan/Congo. It's all pretty straightforward there. And if you want to help non-government organization, vetted, not partisan at all, they're just doctors and other medical professionals trying to help people who are hurt. That's it. It's the organization's called Medical Assistance for Palestinians. They go by the short name MAP. That one, lvx.at/MAP. Pretty straightforward there. All right, so Tasha's gonna give us a little breakdown on Vietnam, China, and then I will be right back, and we will get wrapped up.
News from the Asian Pacific. Hanoi, December 18th, 2023. The United States will continue to closely cooperate with Vietnam. A U.S. official said after Hanoi announced last week its leadership would be strengthening ties with China, including on defense and security, as the two great powers compete for influence. Foreign policy experts are casting a skeptical eye on this week's highly publicized upgrade of foreign relations between the two nations that share a rocky history, stating Hanoi is likely to shift from a carefully balanced foreign policy that includes recent strengthening ties with the U.S. and Japan. Vietnam's leaders upgraded relations with Beijing during China's President Xi Jinping's visit to Hanoi last week, 3 months after they boosted ties with Washington as U.S. President Biden traveled to the country in what has been seen as a success for Vietnam's diplomacy. Vietnam obtained immediate rewards from a 36-page cooperation document signed on Tuesday by party leader Xi and his Vietnamese counterpart, Nguyen Phu Trong. This included wider access to the Chinese market, Chinese funding for cross-border rail links, and a hotline to deal with fishery incidents in the South China Sea. China has been long Vietnam's top trader, with bilateral volume last year topping $175 billion in revenue. China is also the fourth largest foreign investor in Vietnam currently. Historically, relations between China and Vietnam have been unstable, where the two countries fought a bloody border war in 1979 and clashed over an island in the Spratly Chain in 1988 before normalizing ties in 1991. Beijing and Hanoi remain locked in a territorial dispute over the South China Sea, with Vietnam expanding its island-building efforts to counter China's claims of sovereignty over the region. Top-tier diplomatic ties have been in place between Vietnam and China since 2008, but Washington and Tokyo just achieved the same status with Vietnam during President Biden's visit to Hanoi in September, and Vietnamese President Vo Van Trong's trip to Tokyo last month. In an article published in the Nam Dang, the official newspaper of the Vietnamese Communist Party, Dinh laid out his vision of the community as one linking China's development to that of his neighbors so that each country is better off. Dinh continued by stressing that Asia's future is in the hands of Asians. Despite language in the China-Vietnamese statement that may seem to have been directed against the United States, concerns that may hamper Washington's plans to deepen relations with Hanoi have so far been underplayed. According to Cameron Thomas Shaw, spokesperson of the U.S. Embassy in Hanoi, our relationship with Vietnam is not about any third country, he said. Our close cooperation with our Vietnamese partners across various sectors, including health, education, technology, and trade, will continue for the foreseeable future. In a joint declaration issued after Ding's visit, Vietnam and China committed to stronger security and cooperation, including between defense industries and logistics. The U.S. is also working to boost defense cooperation with Vietnam. Carl Thayer, a senior expert in Vietnam security at the Austrian Defense Force Academy in Canberra, said to those aspirational goals with China were unlikely to affect defense cooperations with Washington, D.C. Vietnam and China agreed to enhance intelligence exchange to prevent what they called hostile forces from supporting grassroots movements, such as those that led in recent years to revolutions in former communist countries, which critics say were promoted by Washington. It seems to me they're making a strategic move to make sure that any action China may take against the U.S., they're protected.
All right. Interesting stuff. That is an interesting story. It's weird how China does this, and it seems on the surface that things are tipping in their favor, right? But at the same time, like, a lot of other countries, Western aligned countries, Japan, fucking Philippines, obviously us, we're having the same success that China is, but it's just that, like, China seems to be trying to highlight it more when Vietnam's interests are aligned with the West as well. It's an interesting situation. But let's get ourselves out of here. Let's do the old pluggity plugs. If you go to lvxmedia.net, you will find all the other podcasts we do: boxing, MMA, slice of life, like personal growth type of shit. All the rest of it is there. So if you go there, you can hit the Progressive Patriots button. That'll get you to the contact options, where you have a phone number and an email address. If you would like to email, just hit the button. Pretty fucking easy. If you want to use the phone number, you can call it. It goes straight to voicemail, or you can text. Either way, it's anonymous. If you don't tell me who you are, I don't know who you are. So, take comfort in that if you really care. Right. Other internet shit that helps. Our social media handles, LVXMediaNet on everything. If you can't find me, I'm not on it. If you interact with those, comments, questions, whatever the fuck, it helps. It's appreciated. I will more than likely respond, and we can have a little bit of a dialogue if you want. That helps to get the posts more visible, which has the indirect effect of getting the podcast more visible. But what helps the most is if you rate, review, wherever you're listening. Hit me with a $5, would be much appreciated. If you have the time and want to drop a review, let's see. If you want to get involved, there is a group known as Common Defense. This group It's a U.S.-based group. More than likely, wherever you're hearing this, there's probably like a quote-unquote chapter where near you where you live. This group is the type that pushes legislators to make decisions that help the people in the situations that I've outlined. Common Defense, lvx.at/cdef. That is the membership sign-up page. And yeah, that's the type of shit that we get up to. So with that said, I'm going to get out of here. I hope you all had a Merry Christmas, Happy Kwanzaa, Happy Hanukkah, whatever you celebrate. Yeah, I'll catch you on the next one. We'll see you. I think I'll be doing the domestic, I don't know, in a little while. All right, see you.